Guys, we are the Screen Team. We are back, and we're getting ready to review a pretty killer Michael Mann film. And to help me with it, to help explain it better, to help make this review a little bit smarter, we've got Matt Whitworth on the show. Matt, how are you this evening, man?
I'm doing good. I don't know if I can make this review smarter since you're already here, but thank you for having me on.
Oh, dude, we got you on this one. The movie we're going to be doing is a movie called Heat. And if you're a big movie fan, you're probably like, yeah, I know Heat, but there might be a lot of people out there who might not remember this film. I think it was like 94. It was early 90s this film came out. Yeah. And, I mean, when you look at the people who are in this film, it's pretty star-studded. To start off with, you got Pacino. You've got De Niro.
Yep.
You got Val Kilmer. You got John Voight. Who else am I missing?
Ashley Judd, a young Natalie Portman, Tom Sizemore. Let's see, Danny Trejo, an early role for Danny Trejo. He looks so young in this movie.
I know, right?
I didn't even recognize him, except for he has a distinctive look, so I'm lying. But Ted Levine, William Fichtner, who is in the remake of The Longest Yards and the beginning of The Dark Knight Rises. Dennis Haysbert from the Allstate commercials.
Yeah.
I mean, just on and on. Tom Noonan, who is the original Francis Dollarhide in Michael Mann's Manhunter, the original adaptation of the Hannibal Lecter series.
Yeah.
And he was in one of my personal favorites, Monster Squad, as Frankenstein. So he's a good character actor. Henry Rollins was in this.
Henry Rollins, dude.
Yeah, and Tone Loc. They went out for musicians for this one. So, fantastic, dude.
Hank Azaria's in it, too, I think.
One of my favorite voice actors ever. And a young Jeremy Piven. And
you can tell he's young because he's losing his hair in it.
He hasn't grown it back.
He hasn't grown it back. Yeah. That's right. This movie, obviously, we just mentioned the cast. Spectacular. This movie is, I guess you could say, pretty easily described. You've got good guys and bad guys. The good guys, we got Al Pacino. He's a police detective. You can tell that he's been on the force for quite a long time. He's kind of a big deal because he shows it off that he's a big deal.
Yeah, he has no problem with pomp and circumstance. He has no problem with a flair for the dramatics. And he's Al Pacino in kind of a meta role. It's kind of, I wouldn't say tongue-in-cheek, but it's definitely self-aware to a degree.
Yeah.
He has an entire legacy in film up to this point in 1994 or 5 when it came out, and they want him to go full alpha, male Al Pacino in this role.
De Niro is kind of the same way. He is a big deal, but he doesn't do it in the pomp and circumstance that you had mentioned with Pacino. He's a big deal. He's a very, very smart criminal, but he doesn't show himself off like you would think most criminals would.
He's much more of a stoic criminal. He's a criminal mastermind that wants to get in, get out with efficiency, and he has the famous line, never get attached to anything that you can't drop in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's kind of his mantra. He has a love interest later on in the movie, and they explored that. But he doesn't get himself attached to too many things. He does have his close unit of criminals that are his friends, and he's very loyal to. He's a criminal with ethics, and you kind of find yourself rooting for him a little bit, even though he does things that are not legal, things that we, in everyday life do not agree with.
Right.
And there's a little bit of gray area even with the good guys. So they kind of play up good guys that you like, but you can kind of see their folly, and then you have bad guys that you should get theirs, but you kind of root for as well. And it's a nice gray area, even though the characters in their traditional roles are black and white.
Probably one of the best dynamics to me in this film is the fact that you've got Pacino and De Niro, and this is the first time that they've been together on screen. They've been in movies before where they were in the same movie, but not at the same time. And in this one, they are, but you don't see it until, I guess, maybe like late second act where they finally meet each other and do a scene together. But early on, they're putting their wits at each other.
Yes.
Pacino makes the first move. He figures out that these guys are on the move to make a big score. And then De Niro finds that out, and he plays Pacino in a very cool way, and Pacino figures it out, and he's like, "Oh man, he got me." And that to me is I think the best part of the movie. The strategy between these two characters, the good and the bad, and all the gray parts in between. What did you think? What were some of the highlights of this film for you?
Well, I guess I just have to copy what you said. Anytime that we had Pacino and De Niro even hinting at being on screen together was something to really savor. Because they were the two Godfathers. They crossed paths a little bit in Godfather 2, but not really. They never were on screen together, as you mentioned, and they both were just iconic legends as actors, and especially in the crime genre. And this movie is one of the great heist movies of all time. And I love when they finally get to a diner scene. You know, Al Pacino pulls Robert De Niro over and says, "Let me buy you some coffee." De Niro's like, "All right," and.
All right.
I watch a lot of Mad TV doing an impression. And they're sitting down at the diner, and they kind of get to like each other and have an understanding.
Yeah.
And they even both at some point say, if it comes down between you and me, I obviously am going to take you down, but I'm not going to like doing it.
Yeah.
You know, and they appreciate each other's work ethic, their attention to detail, and, you know, kind of their commitment to their roles that they've chosen. And I love the shootout scene in this movie. It was Cinefix, a YouTube channel that I think has recently been stopped, but they have a lot of great lists and countdowns. And they had the top 10 greatest shootouts of all time in cinema history, including foreign films, and it's a very comprehensive list. This one made in the top 5, if I'm not mistaken. It might have even been number 1. And I can see why. There's a great, you know, in the, I guess the third act, although it's a long movie, so there's several third acts.
Yeah. Stretches out.
Yeah, and there's a big shootout between De Niro's gang and his crew. They're not really a gang, technically. They're bank robbers. And the police force, and it is just grandiose. It's one of the most intense and real and visceral shootouts I've ever seen. It's not as entertaining as, say, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but it's not trying to go for that. It is very much a realistic shootout, and it's very raw and it's uncompromising. A lot of innocent bystanders in this.
Right.
The stakes are raised tremendously, and you have Pacino pursuing De Niro on foot, and it opens up a lot of dynamics for the rest of the third act. But it had me on the edge of my seat the entire time.
That's the good. What's the bad?
The bad, as we both talked about. We messaged each other before this, and we said, "Man, you could have trimmed this up by at least 15, 20 minutes." Yeah. I felt. It's
almost 3 hours. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of, I don't want to say filler, because Michael Mann's a perfectionist, really, really great director.
Yeah.
But I don't know that there is as many of the details that we really needed. I think that a good editor.
Honestly, I thought all of like the quote unquote family scenes, get rid of that. I mean, I know there is important because you want to see the character study of Pacino and De Niro and what makes these guys tick. But man, I want more Pacino and De Niro together doing their thing. I don't really care if Natalie Portman's a 13-year-old girl who's got issues. You know, I love Natalie Portman. I love her. Great actress then and now, but her scenes could have went as far as I'm concerned.
And I guess they wanted to show the strain that it has on marital life. This guy is a phenomenal detective, Pacino is, but he's also in his third marriage, on his way out of his third marriage, as you see later in the film. And it affects both his life, his current wife's life, and his stepdaughter, you know. And Robert De Niro, obviously being a bank robber, being a heist operator, he can't have anybody he's attached to. That's his mantra. And he does find a love interest in the movie. And there's some struggle with that. She obviously falls in love with Robert De Niro. He has a commanding presence to him and everything that just draws people to him. But, you struggle to fall in love with somebody that's doing something illegal. Actually, Judd and Val Kilmer's family life I actually enjoyed, and it actually played a role in the plot later on in the movie. Whereas with Pacino and De Niro's relationships, I think for the most part didn't. There's a scene in the third act with De Niro that did.
That was pretty money.
Yeah, it was absolutely.
Where you're like, oh man, he did that.
Right.
Whoa. Wow. He said he was, and he did. So,
right.
You like the film. I like the film. Is this a film that you feel that you can watch again?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, my wife, no. She fell asleep during the family moments, and whenever it got to the exciting parts, I asked her, "What did you think about the bank robbery scene? What did you think about the shootouts? What did you think about the some of the closing moments?" Without giving too much away, and she said it was pretty good, but not enough to make me want to watch it again because it was so drawn out.
Yeah.
And that's her. She's not as much into bank heist films. I love them, and I loved this film. I just wish that there was I guess, an editor's cut where they could take out an additional 20 minutes and I think make a more clear and concise movie. Or if they want to make it 3 hours, just replace it with more scenes with De Niro and Pacino.
Amen to that. That's Matt. I'm Chris. We are the Screen Team. The movie is called Heat, and you can find it on DVD. More reviews coming your way next on KWOC.